on the West, David. It is approximately 10 a.m. here. Barbecue's getting started. I can smell the coals, if you will.
Yes.
Afternoon there, so people are dead set into the holiday, are they not?
We are way ahead of you out here in the East. People are enjoying the 4th. They're celebrating, and they're glued to this program. They're watching with bated breath as we continue on our afternoon here on the 4th of July.
Well, you know what happened prior to us coming on. Did you see what went down? Joey Chestnut won again the Nathan's hot dog eating contest.
This a new record, right?
Yeah, what, 72? Was that the record?
72. Our Tom Haberstroh, who's not a hot dog insider, but he knows a lot about the NBA, has told me that's one hot dog every 10 seconds for 12 straight minutes. That's a pretty serious clip, no?
Oh, my God. One hot dog every 10 seconds
for 12,
for 12 straight minutes?
Yeah. Now, we talked about the chipmunking at the end. If you, however many hot dogs you get in your mouth at the end, you're good. So, but still, it's unbelievable what he's doing.
I covered that. I know you want to get to Tom Haberstroh, but I once covered the Nathan's hot dog eating contest, and I have to say it was a highlight of my career.
I hope we can show some of the pictures from 2014 when Carrie Champion was the reporter on the scene. There, there she is.
There we go.
You look
Do you see my
less
face?
Than please. Way too glamorous, by the way, for the hot dog eating contest.
Well, David, let me say something.
It's not a gala. This is a hot dog eating contest. Yeah.
And so I was going with my Barbara Walters there. I was digging deep, and I wanted to know. There, I was getting deep with Joey. I said, Joey, talk to me about the preparation for this. What does it take? It's a whole process, David. They prepare months and months in advance for this. I don't know if you know that.
I've heard about this, what you got to do as far as the system and what you eat and what you don't eat. And you really are, as you say, digging deep there into the hot dogs with Joey.
I will tell you this. This is called determination. In 2014, I was covering Nathan's hot dog eating contest, and here I am today working side by side with you. Put your head down, kids. Do your job, and you can work with David Lloyd. That's all.
I think that might be a lateral move, is what they call that.
No.
Anyway, have a sip. Keep on going. And we do have Tom Haberstroh here to talk about basketball. And it's the 4th of July, it's a holiday, all that stuff, but we are being told that Gordon Hayward is likely to come to his decision today, whether it's Boston, whether it's Miami, or whether he stays with the Utah Jazz. Anything you're hearing at this point, Tom?
Yeah, the whispers are that he's leaning Boston. I've heard that he might be publishing it on his own website, and when I went there about a couple minutes ago to his personal website, it said back to Salt Lake, but he was talking about the playoffs. You should change that headline when the headline says back to Salt Lake today on the free agency decision day. So figure that out, Gordon.
He's in San Diego right now, so it might take a little bit. Who knows how late he's going to sleep. When you break down the numbers for Gordon Hayward, what stands out to you about him?
Well, he's a guy who does it all. You look at his numbers, he's a guy who can score 20 points a game in the league. As a forward, he's a distributor. He averaged 3.5 assists a game, which is not something you see out of your typical big man. He can play both positions, either the 3 or the 4. And the biggest thing in today's NBA, you got to be able to shoot the rock. And he shot 40% from three-point land last season. There's only one other player in the NBA who can match him in terms of points, in terms of rebounds, in terms of assists, and his three-point shooting. It's Paul George. And so when people look at Gordon Hayward, they need to think this is a player of Paul George's caliber. And I'm not so sure so many people would think that, but he is an all-around great player. And I think Boston, if they can land him, they would be very, very excited to have.
Now, Paul George is a great defensive player as well. What are Hayward's abilities on that end?
RPM, our real plus-minus metric at ESPN, says they're about the same on the defensive end.
Wow.
He's not as quick as, say, Paul George, but he's smart. And it's kind of hard to distinguish what is good defense between Gordon Hayward and Rudy Gobert. You probably are better defensively. Your metrics look when you're playing with Rudy Gobert on your back line as opposed to, say, I don't know, Miles Turner or whoever Paul George was with. But defensively, he's not, I don't think, as good as Paul George. But offensively, man, he can play.
Okay, so let's just say that he does go to the Boston Celtics. What would he mean for that team in the East?
They would have something of a big 3. I think the Boston Celtics would rather have a guy like Paul George. He just seems like a sexier pick for them. But ultimately, they're going to be happy with Gordon Hayward if they get him. And the Miami Heat, I've been told that they might be out of the sweepstakes, and it makes sense when you look at the fact that the Miami Heat didn't even make the playoffs, and the Celtics were 51 games and won the East there in the Eastern Conference. So I think at this point, him as a compliment to Isaiah Thomas. He's a guy who can score for the first 3 quarters versus Isaiah Thomas taking it over in the fourth. Because the fourth quarter, the Celtics had the best offensive rating in the league, but in the first 3 quarters, they need someone to carry them, and I think Gordon Hayward would do a great job there.
All right, well, so we're standing by, trying to wait for Hayward's decision, whether it's Miami sounds like a little bit of a long shot now, but whether it's the Celtics or he stays home in Salt Lake with the Jazz. A year ago today, Kevin Durant made his announcement to pitch in his lot with the Golden State Warriors, and obviously we know how well that worked out. Give me a stat on Durant that sort of sums up his impact in the league.
How about 0? That's the number of Warriors that were first team All-NBA this season. They won 67 games and may have had the greatest season ever. If they won that one game against the Cavs, they could have had the best season ever and didn't have a single guy on first team All-NBA. You can talk about how stacked the Warriors were. Kevin Durant, when he left and had a knee injury, they went 14 games in a row without losing. So in terms of a stat on KD, I think it's just the whole picture is how stacked the Warriors are. And that decision, he was so validated by going to Golden State because they breezed through the playoffs. And then it's exactly what he wanted. He didn't want to be second place anymore. He didn't want to be second to LeBron. And finally, he got the Finals MVP. And he scored 30 points in every single game in the Finals, one of 6 players to do that in NBA history.
Absolutely stood up to the moment, and he was sensational down the stretch for the Warriors, who were sensational all year. Tom Haberstroh, our NBA guy, talking us through that. Meanwhile, it's been 1 year, as I mentioned, since Durant joined up with the Warriors, much to the chagrin of the people in Oklahoma City, including this one young fan. Check this out.
Hey, Miles. Kevin Durant's not going to be on the Thunder anymore.
Why?
He signed with another team.
He's going to play with Golden State. Do you like Golden State?
No.
No. You hate Golden State?
Yes.
Yes, me too.
I hate him. I'd punch him in the face.
By the way, most NBA teams and players felt the same way that kid did when he found that out.
The parenting there to take video of your
the parenting.
Your little boy's heart, and let's get this on video. This is going to be great. It actually was very entertaining. I hope the tot is over it by now and he's moved on with his life. All right. Summer League action in Salt Lake City. Sixers and Celtics. Markelle Fultz, the #1 overall pick, and Jason Tatum, the 3rd overall pick. And there's Tatum, who had 21 in this game, getting up and throwing down. There's Danny Ainge. Look it up. Is he imagining banners now that he's got Jason Tatum? I don't know. Maybe.
It says it there.
Yeah,
2018.
It's kind of scrawled and scratched out, but yeah, he does appear to be imagining banners there in Salt Lake. A little bit later, Markelle Fultz.
Got him.
And look at Kevin Durant. Fultz
He's got some
poop emoji with him.
That's right.
Pull-up Jimbo was smooth. Probably don't. What does that mean, Carrie? Can you translate?
That's when you hesitate. You know the hesitation. You know about it.
The hezzy pull-up Jimbo?
Yeah, you know about it.
Here's Joel Embiid reacting.
I don't know if that's really Jim
cookie highlight here. This is a holiday highlight here. Jason Tatum. Clutch. Got it. At home with under 6 seconds to go. It drew the play up for Tatum, who complied, knocks that down.
With the LeBron? Is that the LeBron?
I just try to get back, to my sweet spot, mid-range, and, say a prayer and win in.
All right, so they got to go to Fultz to come back. He goes reverse, and there is Jaylen Brown for the rejection. Fultz had 17, but he needed 19. Celtics win 89-88, your final.
Yeah, I'm excited about this class, guys. What about the hezzy? You know about the hezzy, right? Antonio, was I right? He's talking about the hesitation, right? The hezzy.
The hezzy from the others. I know it from the other end, watching somebody do it, being scared what they're about to do to me. Yeah, I know it from that point of view.
You know about the hezzy.
Yes.
Our NBA analysts, Antonio Davis and Tom Penn, front office guy, join us now. Let's talk about these rookies. Jason Tatum, Markelle Fultz going head-to-head. We saw that. That was great. Summer League debuts. Tom, I'll start with you first. How much do these Summer League games matter?
I say they matter. When you draft this high and there's this much pressure on these players, When you're the front office guy sitting there validating your pick with your head coach sitting next to you, it matters, right? How they perform. I guarantee you Danny Ainge feels better today than he would if he played worse. And he's focused on free agency and Gordon Hayward. But when Tatum takes it to the rim and pounds it and then hits a clutch jumper to win the game, he is smiling inside. His coach is happy, and everybody else is seeing this. Okay, maybe the kid's got something. So I think it really does matter in these micro steps to just build confidence for these young players.
It's interesting, Antonio. I know you're talking to players in the league and people who are just associated with basketball, whether you are a part of it or not, you're interested in these summer league games because you are looking for talent. What's your perception of summer league?
Well, I think it's an opportunity. As a player, you never know what can happen, who will see you play. So every time you step on the floor, it's really an audition. You know, you go out there and you do all the little things. You show them that you're engaged. You show them your talent. You show them you're a good teammate. And you never know how much value that's going to create on the other end. But I do know that, you know, these players take it very seriously. And some of them now, they're at the point where we want to win the whole summer league. So they take it up to another notch.
I like what I saw between Tatum and Fultz. And so I'll ask you this, Tom. Do you think in any way this helps them as they get ready to play in the league?
For sure. Micro steps. If they can piece these together, look, it's been one game, but they're going to go to Las Vegas, and it'll be on ESPN, and we'll see it game and game and night in and night out. And if they stack together this sort of alpha performance where they're clearly one of the best players on the court every night and performing under, you know, summer league pressure, but it's still pressure. And these are uncomfortable circumstances, you know, Tony. You get thrown together as a group with a new coaching staff, and you travel to Utah, then you're going to go to Vegas. It's challenging to perform. There's a bunch of hungry guys that are getting after you as well. The level of talent is strong. So I think this does matter. It just gets the ball rolling in the right direction. That's the key for these star players, to get on a trajectory where they're going to have an impact and they're going to matter.
All right, so Antonio, who are you impressed by so far? Small sample size in the pro level because it's just obviously summer league, but anybody you impressed by so far?
You know,
watching him in college?
And just watching Tatum, it was all the different ways that he can score the basketball. I mean, this kid put it on the floor. He knocked down the three ball. As Katie said, that hezzy was off the chain. There were so many different things. You know, you saw him posting up and playing with just such confidence. That will give Boston another weapon. Because both of them, you know, whether it's Jaylen Brown on one side and Tatum on the other, you know, now you have Isaiah who can get to the basket and do so many different things. They can keep the floor spread. And if you happen to move the ball, then these guys can make that next pass or they can make that next play. So I love what he did there, and I think it was a great pick. I was a little skeptical at first, but now I see it if he continues to do this.
All right, the Summer League we shall be watching. You mentioned Vegas for us, Tom Penn. I appreciate it. Tom Penn, Antonio Davis joining us now on SportsCenter Coast to Coast. I'm going to send it back to David, who apparently has some breaking news.
Yeah, how about this? The Sacramento Kings making a bit of a splash here on the 4th of July. They have just signed George Hill to a 3-year, $57 million deal. We know the Lakers have been interested in George Hill, and I just got said in my ear, Zach Randolph also to the Kings.
Wow.
What do we make? Just first blush, George Hill and Zach Randolph going to Sacramento.
Well, the Kings have been devoid of NBA talent. They trade away DeMarcus Cousins. They've got $50 million in cap room roughly to spend. And the real question for them is, could they get anybody to come? Because they could get in this scenario where they make offers, restricted free agent offers like to Otto Porter.
Right.
But here in this particular case, they go to two proven players and get them. So at least they have George Hill as a rock to build around. Nice payday for him.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you add Zebo at the end of his run to at least be a dependable, play every night sort of big. And their real future, though, is in their youth and in developing something to be excited about going forward.
Yeah, but I think this is just, key moves now, because once again, if nobody wants to come there, then it really doesn't matter. They have to start at the bottom and build a foundation now. Now that they don't have DeMarcus Cousins, which I think was the big holdup, now they can start laying this foundation of, okay, let's get some solid veterans in. Let's get some young guys in, get a good mixture going. We'll continue to add pieces and see if we can be competitive. I don't know how competitive they'll be this year, but at least they have some young pieces. They did well in the draft. They have a couple vets now. Now they can start building.
They're going to have to spend up to the league minimum. So the cap is at about $100 million, $99 million. Every team has to spend at least 90% of that. So they're going to have to give $90 million roughly to somebody. And in this particular case, you get a core guy like George Hill, who's high character, who's willing to go there and help build that for the future. It's a nice addition because it's hard to get a player like Hill to go to a place that's in a build mode as opposed to go chase the playoffs, enjoy yourself, have a satisfactory next 3 years. Well, that $57 million will help make it more satisfactory, I guess.
Exactly.
But there's no question they're going to take a pounding in the Western Conference.
Same thing with Zach. You would think he would want to go somewhere too, and try to be in a winning situation. But I think veterans now are starting to realize that there's a lot of value. You can sit back at the end of that bench.
There's a lot of value in money, I think, is what we're finding out here.
And not just 1 or 2 years now. These guys can sit there for a while, help these guys. We saw Kevin Garnett do it in Minnesota. You can help stick around, and they'll pay you a little bit more as you go. But I think there's tremendous value in having those two guys on your team.
What does this mean for the Otto Porter deal? Does it mean anything?
Is it still possible?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's still possible, I would think. I don't have the. Can we go over to the cap machine and figure it out? But my mental cap machine in my head, I think they'd still have enough to make that maximum offer.
Okay.
I would expect it to be accepted. The other thing I had heard was that Otto Porter had multiple suitors, and it wasn't a lock that he was even going to accept the Kings' offer. Maybe he will now because there's some veterans to go with him. I don't know. We'll find that out in short order.
Okay.
$100 million, you don't need veterans. You just need to back the truck up to the bank. Keep it moving.
The Kings are finding a way to spend a little bit of this money. Again, George Hill and Zach Randolph heading to Sacramento. Tom Penn and Antonio Davis with us today, talking us through it. Much more Coast to Coast coming up right after this.
Deal to the Kings, as well as George Hill, 3-year deal worth $57 million. On the phone right now is our Adrian Wojnarowski joining us on Coast to Coast on this holiday. Free agency, so it's really not a holiday for many. Talk to me about why Sacramento was able to grab these two players. Why did they do it?
Well, Sacramento's trying, Carrie, to balance a rebuild here around young players with some veteran players who come from winning organizations. Zach Randolph, 2-time All-Star in Memphis, and now George Hill, who comes from Utah. Now, Hill is a mentor now for De'Aaron Fox, their first-round pick from Kentucky, who's the point guard of the future in Sacramento. But it's very difficult to just turn a team over to a 19-year-old. It gives the Kings now, at the point guard position, a mentor. And then Zach Randolph, for the Kings, he's a tough-minded veteran player who at 35 who still can be a very effective player and really can help to build a culture, an environment there of toughness and of winning.
Okay, so reportedly the Kings, and we know they've had a bit of a talent drain, and I don't know if this is true or not, but we're hearing they may have about $20 million left in cap room. Do you foresee any other major moves like this or any other players that they could have their eye on?
Well, listen, I think as they try to keep some financial flexibility going forward, if there's a young player that's available that they think they can be opportunistic with, I think that's a more likely scenario for their cap space. They're not a win-now team, and so to go out and spend too much more money on veterans, I think the veterans they brought in are part of a bigger plan to grow an environment there. But they have flexibility. They don't, even though they have the cap space, they can hold on to it and come back into it again next summer.
Okay, you mentioned earlier, and I don't know if we said this on our off air because you and I were talking, the grit and grind era is over there in Memphis. Are they on a rebuild as well?
Well, they're very much a win-now team in Memphis with Marc Gasol and Mike Conley. But for how much they were willing to pay two players later in their career, in Zach Randolph and then Tony Allen, who's also a free agent, who is synonymous with the success that they've had in Memphis. The cost of those players was more than Memphis was willing to pay anymore. They're trying to re-sign JaMychal Green, young athletic forward. They have to save money for him. He's a restricted free agent. Someone could put an offer sheet out on him. And so I think that's where their focus is in Memphis right now. But they're continuing to build around Mike Conley, Marc Gasol. But I think they feel like they've got to get a little bit younger, a little bit more nimble with their roster.
All right, Adrian Wojciechowski joining us now on the holiday. No real holiday during free agency, though. Again, the deal is Zach Randolph, 2 years, $24 million to the Kings, and George Hill, 3-year, $57 million again to the Sacramento Kings. Thank you for joining us here on SportsCenter Coast to Coast. David Lloyd, over to you.
Okay, Carrie, we got Tom Penn back with us to talk about it, and we were just discussing this a segment ago about what the Kings can do cap-wise. You've dialed them up. Tell us what exactly you're seeing with their pay structure right now.
Let's take a look at their cap room that they have. They've got $46 million in cap space, right?
After these signings?
No, that's before, coming into it. And their real value is in these young kids. De'Aaron Fox, who they've drafted, Willie Cauley-Stein, a recent pick, Buddy Hield. So you got all this youth. So check it out. George Hill comes in at $19 million. Shout out to Justin Page and Stats and Analytics. That's what we had him at. We had him at $19 million.
Okay.
Then they go shopping for Zach Randolph as another power player. And look, he's going to tick down to, let's say, $12 million. We don't know exactly what his first-year number is. It might be less.
Okay.
But I'll bring that in. And you're seeing that they also had signed Bogdanovich. So between those three, that only leaves them now $15 million left, let's say 15.7. So that question we had earlier about Otto Porter and that $24.5 million, 24.8 offer, not going to happen because they don't have the room for it. It goes red, it's bad.
Well, they could pay a luxury tax, could they not?
No, this isn't a tax issue. This is now a cap issue. In order for them to bring that 24.8 in, they got to have at least 24.8 up there in green. Okay, and they don't have it because of all these players that are under contract, Kufos and Temple, and you just go down the list. They now have a number. They have over 12 players on the roster, so they sit on the cap. It doesn't work, and now Otto Porter is going to have to find somebody else to give him that money.
So when they make that offer sheet to him, it
wasn't ever accepted.
It wasn't accepted, so they're not on the hook for that.
That's right.
Okay.
Had Otto Porter said yes to that offer sheet and signed it, then the $24 million would have sat on their books like this, and then they wouldn't have had room for, say, Zach Randolph to come in.
Okay.
But as it turns out, they didn't want to wait for that answer, or they weren't confident they would get him, so they'll bring Zach back in, and Otto Porter, that never happened, right? So they'll just get Otto Porter back out, and that's what the Kings look like right now. But again, focus on what's below the line. Instead of these 5 players, the real value and the real interest is in how these young guys move up the ladder and show they can play.
Do they have to spend more money if they're $15.7 million under the cap? Do they have to?
Yep. Eventually, they're going to have to get to $90 million, which are 89, whatever it is, the minimum. They don't have to spend the full 15.7, but they do have to spend up to the league minimum 90% of the cap.
Okay. There you go. Sacramento Kings making a bit of a splash here on the 4th of July, getting both George Hill and Zach Randolph, 2 established veterans, to go with some of the young players there in Sacramento. Tom Penn, working hard on the holiday.
We're working.
I think you're clear for the rest of this hour at least.
Let's hope not. Somebody do something.
Maybe something. We're still waiting on Gordon Hayward. We'll see how that plays out. Coming up, our top face of the earth speech in 1939 on the 4th of July. Unbelievable stuff. So our top 5 today, Carrie, is our top 5 sports moments that happened on the 4th throughout sports history.
You take it away, my friend.
Okay, I'll go first, and here we go. I'm just going to go back 1 year. Kevin Durant signing, announcing. Big day. I wasn't working that 4th of July, but what a moment this was in the NBA. So I must have had a better schedule or I don't know, something last year.
Someone liked you more.
Someone liked me much more. But anyway, Durant signing last year, big one. Number 4, McEnroe finally beating Borg at Wimbledon in 1981. Bjorn Borg had won 5 straight there. Johnny Mack dethroned him. Borg perhaps saw the future and would retire shortly thereafter in that year. Number 3, Mets-Braves, 19 innings in 1985. I guess the game started on the 4th and went all the way into the wee hours of July 5th. It took I don't know how many hours. It ended at 3:55, and they had this fireworks display planned, and they went ahead. So they're shooting off fireworks at 4 a.m.
Wow.
Dave Righetti's no-hitter. I watched this carry in a bar on Nantucket, and I got so caught up in the no-no that I missed my ferry back to the mainland.
No, so how'd you get home?
Well, the beer was cold. I managed to. I was okay there for a little while.
Oh, okay.
And then number one for me, it's got to be Lou Gehrig. Sick from the disease that would later take his name. The Iron Horse would be dead less than 2 years later. Just one of those poignant moments in sports history. 78 years ago today.
Yeah. Wow. Well done, my friend. I like your list. I think that ours are comparable today.
What do you got?
This 4th of July holiday. I'm going to go in at number 5 with you. Nolan Ryan for me. Talk about it. Becomes the 4th pitcher to record 3,000 strikeouts. July 4th, 1980. Were you in a bar when this was happening? Did you watch this?
I don't think I was able to be in a bar in 1980, but no, I didn't see this. I don't remember this, but it's a good one. It's a really good one.
All right, well, then number 4 for me, you might like this one. Joe Louis makes his pro debut on July 4th, 1934. Listen to this. Joseph Louis Barrow, a.k.a. Joe Louis, a.k.a. the Brown Bomber, fought in a casino called the Bacon Casino on the south side of Chicago. I don't think that's around, but the Bacon Casino, listen to that. Anything with bacon sounds good to me.
It works.
Even though I don't eat bacon anymore. Here we go, number 3. I moved this up. Kevin Durant, I feel like, I don't know if you put this in its proper place because what he did, as we see now, has really changed free agency. A super team has been invented because of this young lad and where he decided to go. Do you remember where you were July 4th last year? You were off, right?
I think it was off.
You were off.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I made this number 2, easy number 1, but I made it number 2. It was obviously before our time, but a very important moment in sports history that we should document that happened to happen on July 4th. And number 1 for me, fight of the century. How come you didn't put this on here? 1910, heavyweight champion Jack Johnson defeated James Jeffries. Do you remember that? Do you know of that fight of the century?
Was that on HBO? I can't remember that one. Was that?
It was out on HBO, but it was racially sensitive because Jack Jeffries had came out of retirement to fight Jack Johnson, and when he got knocked down twice, his corner threw in the towel because they just didn't want to see him have a knockout on his actual legacy, and so race riots ensued. You could understand why. It was 1910, very racially sensitive time, but just a great moment. It was called the fight of the century.
Jack Johnson, unbelievable life that he lived. It's a great biography. Anyway, we got Tom Penn here who has to judge this. We have a lot of things on the plate here. Yeah. Tom, go ahead. Dig in.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate both of you. Thanks for not putting someone stuffing their face with hot dogs anywhere on this list. We've given that enough airtime.
Can we get some highlights, please?
Look, I got it. We're talking historic, and I have to applaud you for putting 3 black and white photos up there, 2 boxing images. Here you win it in my book.
Man.
That was spectacular.
She stole my game and she used it against me to beat me because I'm usually the historian, and Carrie now going back into the grainy reels of black and white film and somehow pulling
David, it's interesting because when I win, you don't lose with grace, David.
No, I'm applauding you. Can you not hear me? I'm throwing bouquets in your direction.
I hear you say I stole your swag. You say I stole your game. Is that correct?
I think you've upped your game to get it up to my level. That's basically what I'm trying to say here.
Talk about it. Thank you very much, Tom. That was a backhanded compliment. I'll take it. Thank
you. Happy 4th of July.
What's next, David?
We've got our 4th of July uniforms on. The red tie, the white shirt.
Yep, you got it.
Dark blue suits. Tom, great having you here. I said you were going to be off for the rest of the show. I lied again, as usual. All right, we're back after this.
Lights flashing, nice laughing, loving my passion. What happened? I am a superstar. Things won't be the same. Everybody knows your name when you are a superstar.
All right, so welcome back to Coast, David. It's Hayward Watch. You're there with someone who has some information, our trusty front office NBA insider. That would be Tom Penn. Where shall he go is the big question. We're still awaiting that news. David, you take it away.
It sounds like, from what we've been hearing, the Miami Heat might be a dark horse here. It's going to come down to the Jazz and the Celtics. Some people think he's leaning Boston's way. They feel pretty good about what kind of a package they've offered him. So let's take us through the Celtics first and how Gordon Hayward would fit in with their pay structure.
Yeah, the Celtics are interesting. 29.7 is his max salary. They have that 28.4. There's actually a little more room because a cap count would go away, but they're about $500,000 off right now. Let's assume Danny Ainge can figure that out. This is pretty interesting because now here's your starting five: point guard, two guard, small forward, power forward, center, and then don't forget what's all down here. You know, Tatum and Brown, the youth. The troops are coming. There's a lot of help here. So I think that's very appealing for Gordon Hayward. Might be his choice, although he's going to take $44 million less to come here.
Okay, so let's go now to Utah, where he's going to make a boatload more money if he decided to stay in Salt Lake City. Maybe the team would not be as strong. He really wanted Ricky Rubio. They went out and signed him. Yeah. So they did that in small part or large part because of Gordon Hayward. How do you see this working out?
So same starting salary, $29.7 million. Notice they don't have the cap room, and we were talking about this, but they can use the Larry Bird exception to keep their own players, so they don't need the room. He fits in there, right? Now you got him paired with Gobert, with Ricky Rubio, the replacement player, with Derek Favors, and they brought back Joe Ingles, too. So this is a group he's familiar with. It's home for him, and it's $45 million, $44 million more. I think he stays.
Strictly for the cash considerations? I mean, he obviously is comfortable there, but...
You know, it's interesting because we say $44 million more. If you're going from $4 million to $48 million, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But if you're going from $130 million to $174 million, I'll make it up somewhere else. There's sort of some logic to that.
Yep.
So I don't know if it's just about money or fit. You never know what goes into these free agent decisions. It's where am I going to raise my family? Where's my wife happy? And where am I going to achieve my glory? He'd be a guaranteed all-star in the East because there's none left in the West.
The team he would be signing with if he went to Boston would have a better shot, certainly, of making the finals than this Jazz team. Correct?
I agree. They have to slog through everybody with the Jazz, and I think with the East, it's just Cleveland or bust. And you get the right kind of injury and the right kind of luck, and you're in the finals.
Okay, so Gordon Hayward, what we've been told is he's going to make some sort of a decision today. That's reported. We don't have anything definitive on that, and who knows which way he's going to go. He's living in San Diego right now, so he's on West Coast time, so maybe a little bit later in the afternoon.
You think he's up?
Yeah, he's up.
He better be up. It's kind of a big day for him, Tom, right?
It's a big day. He's up.
You don't need an alarm clock today, Carrie, when you're going to sign a whole boatload full of money.
I may or may not be going to a barbecue that he's at later on, so I might have that news for you. I'm not for sure. All I know is I'm heading somewhere. The show is over. David, enjoy your family on the holiday. Tom, you too.
I will.
Happy 4th.
You're finally done, Tom. There's no more show.
I know.
He's
got to go.
All right, thank you.
Bye, you guys.